Welcome into the Fade. I am Clay Travis. She is Kelly Stewart. It was a massacre for me, at least, on week one, where I went 6-9 overall. However, I am fearlessly diving back into the fray with 11 winners coming this week. Also, NFL action is underway, and I have the OutKick six-pack. But let's begin, Kelly, with the massacre that was over the weekend that was. It wasn't great for you in the college football opening weekend either. I think maybe the best thing we can say is at least we're not Florida State. What's your takeaway from week one of college football?
Good grief. I left not one, but two outright underdog winners off my card. Clay, my long list had Sam Houston State in a play against Rice, but I said, I don't know enough about Sam Houston State. How on earth can I take this team? And Nevada winning outright over Troy, which killed not one, but two of my fantasy entries for college football this year. So it was pretty rough. I ended up going 3-4. Luckily, I have some good friends who shared a couple of winners with me. They said, trust me, the book needs Notre Dame. You want to be on the Irish. So I was on them. And they talked me off Houston and on to UNLV, which very rarely happens, I'll have you know. But when UNLV hit 3.5, I said, all right, fine. I'm not going to lay it with Houston. I missed the number. Boy, am I glad to have good friends in times of this type of weekend.
All right, let's go first in college football in the weekend to come. And we're recording this a little bit early so everybody knows on Tuesday because I'm going to be on the road all week. I'm in D.C. right now. That's the studio backdrop. Usually we'll do this on Thursday. So if the numbers move or you see clips, it's because right now we are taping right around 3:30 Eastern on Tuesday with the NFL due back on Thursday. Lots of action out there. There are two top 25 games. One is the one that everybody's going to be talking about, Texas at Michigan. And Texas has surged all the way out to over a touchdown favorite. I am going to stay on the Longhorns, even though I understand that that is awful value. We'll talk about that in a sec. And then Tennessee also has gone out to over a touchdown favorite over NC State. Those are the only two at the moment top 25 matchups going on in week two of college football. So let's start with Texas, Michigan, which is the big noon game. Texas destroys Colorado State. Michigan, meanwhile, struggles against Fresno State. The line has moved well over a touchdown now with Texas as the road favorite. I am still betting the Longhorns. I think they are substantially better than Michigan. But I bet you're going to tell me, Kelly, that all the sharp bettors out there are saying this is way too much of a line move after 1 week. Is that true or not? How would you assess the biggest game of the week, big noon, leading into the noon Eastern kickoff on Fox?
Well, the best news for our audience is when we disagree, whoever they tail usually wins. Because here's the reality. When you and I agree, Clay, it is an abomination. Last week was horrible on the games we agreed on. So I'm glad right out of the gate we're disagreeing here. Yes, 7.5, though, is the magic number for Michigan. It was available for a little bit of time this morning, got immediately bought back down. If you are betting Texas, you're too late. At 6, you probably should have bet it. 6.5. Okay. Now at 7, you are too late to the party. If it hits 7.5 again, I will be on Michigan. I was on Fresno State. That was my lone Saturday winner. They had Michigan on the ropes there. It was 17-13 for a minute. And I thought, oh my, after that pick 6, the back door is open for Michigan to cover. And it could be a very, very bad day for me. Bottom line, the Dogs got it done. Michigan played very, very vanilla. I actually watched the Connor Stallions doc last night. And I'm a little more conflicted about this Michigan team in regards to if they cheated or not, but that's beside the point. I made Texas a 1-point underdog in this game. That was back in June when I started doing my power ratings with my good friend Ralph. He and I share a spreadsheet. We have now updated said spreadsheet. I have Texas -4. So again, a lot of value here on the dog at home. Now, noon, we all know big noon is a great time, especially in the Big 12. It's not as great in the Big 10. We got to get those college kids a little bit more rowdy there in the big house. I think they're going to be absolutely fired up for Texas. Texas absolutely exploited Jay Norvell in Colorado State. I understand why you like them. Texas is always back until they're not, but I'm going with Michigan in this one.
What about Tennessee, who I believe the look-ahead line was 5.5? Nico was unbelievable. I just talked about him on OutKick. I love Nico. Meanwhile, NC State, very tight game against Western Carolina, and a lot of people are reacting now to what is a neutral site game in Charlotte. Tennessee now, this morning when I was betting, out over a touchdown. Too much line movement. Do you like it? I'm on the Vols. I think Tennessee wins this by double figures, not because of the offense, but because I believe if you actually look at the defensive side of the ball, that's where Tennessee has shown the most improvement. I think they'll have a lot of success against the NC State offense. Nico's going to be good all season if they can keep him healthy. But this line, again, these are the two top 25 games, moving a great deal. What stands out to you?
Yeah, I would agree with you. The Tennessee's defense does look improved. They looked very, very good last weekend. Oh, by the way, NC State sitting there on the ropes late. Could not believe how poorly they looked. I made this game 6. Again, neutral site game, so no home field advantage for either team. If you ask me, I'd give the slight nod to NC State because it is in North Carolina, but not a far drive there from Knoxville. So I think this is going to be the one where you might fire me. Because I made a long list last night. This is what I do. Usually on Sundays, I start to look at the games. I like to open the line moves, check it again on Monday. And then Tuesday, I really start to dive into my homework. I've got 6 dogs that I think have a chance to win outright this week. And NC State is one of those dogs. I think they looked so bad last week at 7.5. There's some tremendous value here that I have to take at least over the touchdown on a neutral site. I might be dead wrong. Tennessee might boat race this team, but I don't think they're near as bad as they looked last weekend.
What do you think about let's talk about this for a second. When a line gets to 7.5, it's like that the book is begging someone to take the underdog, right? 7.5 is a big line move. We saw Texas go up 7.5. It's moved around some. Again, we're taping this at 3:30-ish Eastern time on Tuesday. Tennessee up over 7. What to you does 7.5 signify from a bookmaking perspective when somebody goes over that significant number? You mentioned earlier, sitting at 6.5, all points are not created equal. The jump from 6.5 to 7.5 is way more substantial maybe than the jump from 8.5 to 11 or something like that when you actually get into what the bookmaking perspective is. What would you say they're telling us? What's the line story here?
Well, it's really interesting you say that, Clay, because in college football, it's much different in NFL. 7 is so important in NFL, and in college football, it's just not as important. The line move, let's use Colorado, for example, last week, right? We saw that one open, 8.5? It got bet all the way up to 12. I told myself at 12, I've got to take North Dakota State, and I still wussed out. I couldn't do it. I was like, I don't know enough about this North Dakota State team, and boy, did they get steamed. Didn't matter. So those types of line moves aren't as significant, but yes, I would agree at this point in time, they're saying, okay, what did we see week 1? Where are we going to make adjustments? As I mentioned, I made a very small adjustment here on the Tennessee North Carolina State game. We made a more significant one on Texas, Michigan. And that is partially because Big 12, most of the conferences that I watch are Power 4 conferences now, but I would say the number one conference I watch, because my alma mater is in it, is the Big 12. I am harder on Texas and Oklahoma than everybody else for obvious reasons from a long-standing history. So I thought maybe I was just a little too low on Texas, so I over-adjusted for this game. These two teams, I didn't over-adjust. Now, NC State absolutely burned me last year. That's still in the back of my mind. Could this team get out-coached? I think Tennessee is a very well-rounded team. And if they have their head on straight, they should absolutely wax North Carolina State. They have Kent State on deck, so there's nothing to really look ahead for here. And then, of course, they go to Oklahoma. But I do think this is going to be a much better performance from the Wolfpack. But to say that 6.5, 7.5 is significant in college football, it is a tactic that the books do to obviously entice money on the other side. And we will start to see buybacks at certain points in time, but it's not like the NFL where that key number is worth so much more.
Speaking of which, I'm taking Nebraska, also out to 7.5-point favorites on Colorado after that game you just mentioned against, where, let's be honest, Colorado, the way that game ended, was very fortunate to win it. They were down at half. Let me hit you with some others. I'm on the South Florida, Alabama over. I think Alex Golesh, year 2 with South Florida, they'll have an exact opposite style game to what we saw last year, which was a defensive struggle down in Tampa. I've got Ole Miss to blow out MTSU. I have got South Carolina, Kentucky, the under. Iowa State, Iowa, the under. Cal, Auburn, I like Auburn minus the 13.5. I like the over on Arkansas, Oklahoma State, and I like Penn State, covering machine that they are, to cover the number against Bowling Green. And then finally, I've got Duke, Northwestern. You can read my logic. Under 39.5. That is what, 8 more games that I think I just hit you with, or 9 more games? Do any of them stand out? Are you on the same or a different side on any of these?
So I am not on necessarily a different side. I think that I could make a case for Colorado here against this Nebraska team, but I will say this: Nebraska has a lot of revenge factor on their mind from a situational perspective. Now, you cannot quantify that, but I do take that into an account of how the game went down last year. I think, what did their quarterback end up throwing? 4 interceptions or something absolutely horrific in that game. So I know they've had this one circled. Colorado is going to be improved from last year, but unfortunately they're going to be playing in a tougher conference. And I don't think that's going to show quite as simply as if they were still in the Pac-12 or if the Pac-12 was still a conference. For me, Clay, some of my long list games, Arkansas is going to be a really interesting game for me. I cannot for the life of me decide what to make of this Arkansas team. And I had a lot of people tell me last week, South Dakota State. And I said, I'm not betting against Gundy here with an FCS school. I'm going to sit back and watch and let's see what he's able to do. This is an Arkansas team a lot of people are down on. I understand what we're getting from them. They're only favored last week by 55 versus Pine Bluff. And then they're going to be favored again over UAB and Louisiana Tech. I do think this is going to be a very interesting game in Stillwater. I'm still trying to make a case for the Hogs here. I made this game 11 back in June, and I've slowly started to decrease the little bit of love there on Oklahoma State and increase a little bit of Arkansas love. We'll see if I can't get over a touchdown here with the Hogs. I may end up being on them. And then, of course, I'm going to get a lot of people saying that I'm a hater for looking at Illinois here versus this Kansas Jayhawks team who last week, they didn't struggle, but they played one of the worst teams. And in fact, I had to Google before playing them, Lindenwood. They were 51-point favorites. They got off to a slow start here in the first half. I made them a 5.5-point favorite at Illinois last week. Illinois, nothing really to write home about, but I do think at home, they're going to put up an absolute dogfight here. KU not only being overvalued by ESPN, shocker, they're being overvalued in their own minds. This fan base is absolutely got so many highs for a team playing on a neutral field all season long there at Arrowhead Stadium. So I'm going to look towards Illinois and the points. A few other outright underdogs looking towards San Jose State, FIU, and Tulsa, Clay. But I've got some other favorites I'm kind of looking at, maybe App State, if you will, as a double-digit favorite.
17.5 is the number I saw earlier today against Clemson.
Yeah, so every week I'm doing a sponsored video, and they say, hey, Kelly, we want your favorite double-digit underdog that you think can win outright. State, I think, is going to give Clemson a run for their money this week. Now, albeit Clemson could not have looked any worse in that second half, and usually I don't want to back teams like that, but we saw it last night with FSU, same kind of scenario where you lose that first game in humiliating fashion. Sometimes you lose the game right after. Call it losing the same game twice. We saw it with the Seminoles, and I think we could see it with the Tigers.
NFL. Thursday night kickoffs. Obviously, again, we're talking Tuesday around 3:30 Eastern. I have already sent in my OutKick 6-pack, so let me hit you with these and see if you agree or disagree with any of them. I'm taking the Titans plus 4.5 against the Bears. I know it's Caleb Williams' debut, but I feel like new head coach Will Levis and team, potentially some value there. Am I crazy in your mind for taking the Titans there?
Absolutely not. I have given out the Titans back +5 over the summer, Clay. I do some summertime work for another company, and they say, Cal, give us some way too early NFL picks. And that was the number one pick that I gave out. So I've already on the Titans. I think we're even going to see 3.5. I don't know if we'll see 3, but this line is going to start to come down because everybody is going to bet the Bears, rightfully so. They're on Hard Knocks. Caleb Williams. They've got tons of wide receivers. I still have questions about that defense. I think Will Levis is a good quarterback. Remember, I told you that before the Falcons game we went to last year.
I'm still not sold on that, but I like the value 4.5. Yeah, you said he was a good quarterback. You were with me. I bought you and Ariel tickets for his debut when he threw 4 touchdown passes. That's the best he looked all season. Was that against the Falcons, if I remember correctly? And he looked fantastic in that game. Yes, I am not sold on Will Levis, but I do like him +4.5. I didn't know that you'd been giving that one out. And to me, it's just way too many points for the Bears in the debut of Caleb Williams. All right, here's a couple more. Steelers, Falcons, the over. I like Russell Wilson's experience with a decent team, all right? I like all of a sudden you're getting Kirk Cousins with what I think is a fairly talented offense surrounding him. Over 42.5 there. I'm taking the Dolphins -3 against the Jags. I think the Jags, I know they were super hot last year in the preseason. And then I'm taking the Texans. Everybody's focused on C.J. Stroud. And I feel like I'm getting begged into this bet a little bit with the line. But I'm taking the Texans -2.5 at the Colts. Anthony Richardson returns from the injury. Steelers, Falcons over, Dolphins, and the Texans. Anything stand out in those 3 picks?
So I'm going to be against you with the Texans. I actually saw CJ Stroud when we were at our booth there with OutKick during the Super Bowl in Vegas. And his handlers thought like for a second they were going to panic because I was like, CJ, I love you. And they like all turned around and looked. I was like, what? He won me a lot of money last year. Everybody calm down. I just wanted to give him a shout out. So I don't want to disparage anything about what CJ did last year, but we have what we see every single year with rookie quarterbacks. They almost have like a come to Jesus moment where these defensive coordinators have started to pinpoint them. Yes, there has been a few anomalies, and CJ could be one of them. But I'm a lot higher on the Colts this year. I like Shane Steichen. We talked about him a lot last year. Anthony Richardson getting hurt early was absolutely detrimental. I have the Colts over their season win total. I have Colts to win the AFC South, and I have Colts +2.5. They're also a really great teaser pick for this week.
Okay, other 2 picks I have, Chargers -3 in the Jim Harbaugh debut game against the Raiders. And then I'm taking the Cowboys. Almost never happens. The Cowboys are what I think is undervalued against the Browns. Deshaun Watson's coming back. I know the Browns had a very, very good defense, had a lot of success last year without him. But I feel like the Cowboys are kind of under the radar in this game. So I've got Chargers and I've got Cowboys. Do you have a read on either of those?
Yeah, my fantasy team's going to be happy. I drafted entirely too many Cowboys players this year. Not my choice, but I will say this. I will be on the Raiders if I can get 3 or over. We'll see if Brock Bowers plays. That's pretty much going to be my deciding factor. As you mentioned, we are filming here on Tuesday. So we got a few days to kind of figure out some injuries and who is going to be actually a go and who isn't. Always something I like to wait on for some of these bets, knowing that probably aren't going to affect the line, but could affect the gameplay. I like Antonio Pierce, what he's been able to do there with this Raiders team. I think they want to play for him. I'm not sold on Coach Harbaugh just yet in his Chargers debut. We'll see how that ends up playing out, but that one I do have circled. And it's pretty funny because I really don't like this line move. I did that same video. I said Tampa Bay -4.5. It's now Tampa Bay -3. So kind of kicking myself in that one. A lot of hype surrounding this Washington Commanders team. I'm not sure they can go into Tampa, which is god awful in the month of September. I mentioned Gainesville last week. Tampa's going to be just as hot on Sunday, 1 p.m. kick. Actually, I think they might have moved it to 4:25. Got to double check that one. But man, is it going to be absolutely brutal. Rookie quarterback against a Bucs defense. I like Baker Mayfield. He can manage this offense. Mike Evans is going to be his go-to security blanket like he was all last year. But ultimately, I think Tampa Bay is going to be able to win this game, at least by a field goal. I cannot believe I have such a terrible number. And then last but not least, in my survivor pick, I've decided that the whole world is going to be on the Bengals. So they are crossed off. So one of my potential survivor picks is going to be the Seattle Seahawks. I don't know if I want to lay the 4.5 with them over the Denver Broncos. You mentioned how much better you thought Russell Wilson was going to be on the Pittsburgh Steelers. I kind of disagree with you there, but I think the Bo Nix hype is just getting a little overblown from the preseason. Brandon Jones is probably going to be out for the Denver Broncos. We'll see. Tyler Lockett might be hurt for the Seahawks. There's a lot of early week injuries that I'm kind of looking at trying to decide. It's really tough to go into Seattle and get the game won outright, at least. So Seattle is my number one survivor pick this week. We'll see if I actually get to the window with them. I have 9 survivors I somehow agreed to this year, Clay.
But what was the reaction when suddenly I wasn't able to draft in our high-end fantasy league? I was traveling yesterday from Florida to back up here to D.C. now, and then I got to go to L.A. Wins tomorrow. But I really thought the Wi-Fi was going to work. I got on the plane. It didn't, and so I just vanished. Was everybody totally expecting that I would vanish at some point?
So, Clay, at this point in time, I think you've been in this league like 5-6 years now, maybe even longer. And I think nobody ever expects you to do anything but auto draft from an airplane. So you actually did not get complaints. There were some complaints about a couple of the other guys claiming there was a glitch in the system, even though I had it open on my computer and there was no issues on my end. But now at this point, people expect you to just not care. I literally text Chad, who's one of my partners, Clay and I already have a side bet. Why are you bothering Clay? He's working. And he's like, what do you mean? And I'm like, scroll back. We have too many old guys in this league is the problem. It's not technology. It's old.
Furman not being willing to tell me who he was going to take number 1 overall, despite having had the number 1 pick for months, because I was sitting in the airport and I just wanted to make sure that I didn't miss my opening pick. And I was there for like 11 of the 16 picks or whatever before. Is a vintage Furman move, isn't it? Like, he won't even tell me. Like, I figured he was taking Christian McCaffrey. I just wanted to have the number 2 pick ready, but he wouldn't even tell me.
He just is so weird like that. We can't explain the anomaly that is Todd Furman. I texted him last night a joke because he had put something pretty funny in the chat. And I go, I screenshotted that, because Todd is very risk adverse when it comes to his brand. And he just laughed and he goes, same side bet as last year. And we both have a friend who has a dog rescue in Las Vegas. So the loser donates a nickel to the dog rescue every single year. And I said, hey, my partners are really happy with our team. They want to up the ante in side bets. And he goes, I don't even know what week I play you. And I immediately wrote back week 4. I haven't heard from him in 3 hours. Like, come on, Todd, put your money where your mouth is, besides just for the dogs.
No doubt. All right, Kelly, we should be live on Thursday. Hopefully my Tennessee Volunteers will have a double-digit win, and we can get some mojo going back on college and the NFL. But thank you for being flexible today. Thank you for helping me get through the fantasy draft, and I will see you next week, and we'll see all of you as well. This has been The Fade. Anything else you think people need to know as we go to break?
Nope. Better luck to both of us next week. I know we both need it. Otherwise, this show really is going to become The Fade.
No doubt. I'm Clay Travis. She's Kelly Stewart, a.k.a. at Kelly in Vegas. We will see you next week on Thursday.